one more thing to go in terms of housekeeping, and that is that this session is being recorded. So if you do not want to appear in the video, which we're planning on popping on the website in the next couple of days, you can turn your video off. So once again, that's just the bottom left-hand corner. There's an icon to turn your video off. You'll still be able to see the presentation, but it means that your face won't be on the website on this presentation. So we'll leave that with you, but we will be publishing this video. Right, with all of that sorted, I think it's time to get into the actual grunt of the presentation. So what are we covering today? We're planning on taking you through the computational capabilities of these new machines. Now, these machines are actually being installed as we speak, so it's very timely that we get together with you. We're also going to cover off some of the new research-oriented services that we'll be able to deliver off the back of these machines. A hot topic for many is how data transfer and storage is affected in the new machines, or improved, I should say. And then we'll cover off some of the details around accessing the infrastructure and any changes to what you're seeing today on the systems versus the new systems. And as I keep saying, this will all be followed up by a question and answer session at the end. So do just note down those questions, and we'd love to cover those off with you at the end of the session. Right, our new platforms. Overall, there's 3 new machines that we're purchasing. These are all Cray machines, and they're supported by IBM Storage. Now, the first one that is being installed is HPC3, or Coupe. We have a name for that machine. It is Coupe, and that in the long run will be a NeSI platform. But at the moment, we're using that as a transition machine for users who are currently on Fitzroy. So we have to get you guys off the Fitzroy machine so that we can put HPC1 and HPC2 in its place, physically in its place. So we're using Coupe as a transition machine. The other 2 machines, we have what's currently being referred to as HPC1. This is a Cray CS400 high throughput machine. And we have HPC2, which is the XC50 supercomputer. And like I was saying, they're all supported by IBM Storage. Okay, so let's get into a few more of the details. I'll focus here on HPC1 and HPC2, which will be the NeSI platforms as we move forward. Now, HPC1 is for capacity machine. So what this means is that this is where you'll run your work if you have a large amount of tasks to do. If you are doing more complex tasks and you need a supercomputer, you'll be on HPC2. And this is the capability machine. And between these machines, there's a lot of similarities. You'll see that the columns there do align quite a bit. But that main difference between the 2 is the difference between high throughput work versus highly complex questions. And as I mentioned, if you're currently on PAN, you're most likely to be shifted to HPC1. If you're currently on Fitzroy, you're most likely to be shifted to HPC2. Now, if we jump into the operating environment, this Venn diagram really highlights similarities that there are between those 2 machines. And this is one of the big changes. So we've gone from 2 platforms with different setups, which makes it, as a user, you tend to choose one and stick with it. Now we're going to have 2 different options with a lot more similarities, with shared storage capacity, which means that you can use whichever machine is suitable for your given project, and then easily transition between them as that changes. Now, on these machines, there'll be a range of compilers and tools that you can use. If you're currently on PAN, you'll be familiar with Slurm Scheduler, so that's for job scheduling. This job scheduler will be used across both platforms. We're using a spectrum scale file system, and this is a high performance file system, which means that as you're working on those new machines, it will be really efficient. And then there's also a number of other tools for debugging and developing your code. One of the big things we need to point out here is that there are a whole lot of new tools here for you as users to make the most of these machines. And these are new tools both to NeSI but also to you. So we're going to provide a lot of training as those tools need to be used. We'll be training you guys in how to use them. So do not fear at the moment. We'll help you out with that. The other thing to note here, though, is that with that training, our very first priority is going to be training, simple training just around that transition. So that will be the first training that we contact you about. And if you're on Fitzroy already, you will have already been contacted about that. If not, please contact us at support@nesi.org.nz. If you're currently on PAN, we will be getting in touch with you late December, early next year to coordinate that. Now, moving on to the software development environment. Once again, I'll just provide an overview, but you can see there's a lot of detail here. If you have specific questions around these, the software, please ask it in the Q&A session. Okay, so through here you can see that we have Slurm, once again, as our job scheduler. We're going to support a number of programming languages, and there's also going to be a big range of compilers to compile the programming languages on the machines. There's a number of porting and profiling tools, and also a big lot of scientific libraries. Now, with this, if you have a library or a programming language that you're using on our machines currently, we will make sure it's there on the new machines for you. So you're not going to lose any capability moving to those new machines. If you do have some special code or programming language or compiler that you need and it's not in our list, we really encourage you to contact us via our support email and talk to us about that, because we may be able to support that additional programming language or whatever as well. So please just reach out to us on that. Right, so I think we'll go on to the new services now. This is one of the more exciting bits of the presentation as we dive into this. Our first priority, of course, will be that smooth transition. Once we've got all of our users across using the system smoothly, that is when we're going to start implementing these new services. So they won't be available on day one, but we will roll them out over time. So one of the ones that's really interesting for the various research communities around New Zealand is virtual laboratories. And these are a set of environments where everything you need for doing your particular work will be in one place. So if you're not familiar with the concept of virtual labs, the best way to think about it is if you were a wet lab scientist, you walked into your physical lab, you'd expect to see all the machinery, all the reagents, all the tools you need to do your experiments all in that physical room. A virtual lab is the same thing for your e-research. And we want to work really closely with the particular research communities that will benefit from these collaboratively to develop them. So if you think your research community is one that would benefit from such a virtual lab, please get in contact with us so that we can work with you on that. Now, one of the next big changes will be the capability to do cloud bursting to the public cloud. So while we'll have those private cloud environments, which is another way to think of your virtual labs, if you find that we don't have enough space, your project's got too big for that virtual lab, we'll be able to seamlessly burst or extend your work into the cloud, into the public cloud. And the benefit there is you won't need to stop your research, transfer everything, and reset up in a new place. We'll support that for you. So we're really looking forward to developing that service. Another one of the big new services we'll be looking to develop is visualization. And we've got quite an extensive and sophisticated software suite to enable this. When we talk about visualization, what we mean is that you will be able to visualize your data on the new machines. Similarly, you'll be able to visualize the output from the analytics or the processing on the new machines. Now, when you think about the fact that we also have a lot more storage available with the new machines, so more storage, remote visualization, or being able to see stuff on the new machines, what it means for users is that you won't need to move your data around. You'll be able to move it there, do everything, look at it, and only once your project's finished will you have to get rid of things off the new machines. All of this is new for everyone, new tools, there'll be new software in order to deliver these services. So obviously we'll be developing training to support you on this. Once again, if you have questions, please pop them in the question and answer document or raise your hand during the Q&A session. Data analytics is another new area for NeSI that will be enabled with the new machines. We've got a great suite of tools from Cray to allow you to run simulations and do the analytics, the data analytics, all on one platform. The new systems will allow for very complex workflows, and also one thing that we've had a lot of demand for is interactive workflows. So these new systems, supported by this big suite of analytics tools, will enable those complex and interactive workflows. And this is moving now a little bit more into how you're going to access the machines and some changes around that. We're going to be putting in place a user self-service portal. This is where you'll log in. You'll continue to log in using your institutional credentials via the Tuakiri Federation. Now, if you are not a member or your organisation is not a member of the Tuakiri Federation, do not fret. We will also have a solution for you. Through this portal, you'll be able to manage your allocations, you'll be able to see your usage and general project statistics. So you'll really have a good feel for where your project is up to against its allocation. This is also where, when you first get onto the new machines, you'll be able to set up your password for your SSH connections. All of this is exactly what we'll be providing training for when the time comes. The hot topic, data storage and transfer, what's happening here? The punchline really is there's going to be more storage and it's going to be faster storage. So if you have lots of files or very large files, it's going to be easier to work on NeSI on the new platforms than it has been in the past. We've got the IBM Elastic Storage Server being put in. Now, what this means is that while you may start with a small set of data or a small amount of storage that you need, as your project grows, as your work increases, you'll be able to scale that up easily within that storage area. We also have a long-term storage option that we'll be developing. So we have the hierarchical storage management, and this is where we can start to develop a bit more in the way of data archiving. So I know that this is of particular interest to some research communities. Once again, if this is something that piques your interest as a research community, please reach out to us if we haven't already reached out to you, because we'd love to talk to you more about what this means for you guys. all in all, though, as it says in the flashy yellow star, more storage, faster storage. And in terms of data transfer, we'll be supporting and recommending the use of Globus. Now, Globus is great for moving really large chunks of data. If you're not familiar with how to use Globus, I recommend that you reach out to us and we can take you through it for your particular use case. It's great because it is secure. So if you have sensitive data, perhaps you're doing something in the health field, for example, Globus is suitable for your data. It's also reliable. It has a functionality built in that if the connection drops during a transfer, it knows where it got to during that transfer, and it makes sure that no data is lost. So this is really fundamental when you're moving your research data around. There'll also be a command line interface for Globus in the new systems. And once again, we'll definitely be providing training for that so that you can implement it within your workflows. For smaller chunks of data, we will still have secure copy transfer available. Okay, now we move on to accessing the NeSI infrastructure. And this is one of the changes that we're implementing as we bring on these new machines. In order to have a more secure environment for our researchers, we are implementing a two-factor login. So in the past, we've used SSH keys to get into the machines, but on the new systems, we will have that two-factor. So one factor will be your password, and the second factor will be a Google Authenticator code. For those of you with smartphones, there's a small app that you can download which will facilitate this. If you don't have a smartphone, there's also a web interface for Google Authenticator. So you'll be all right in either situation. We will be providing training to everyone on how to deal with the two-factor login. User migration. We keep saying that it's not going to be a problem, and we continue to say this. So our main focus here is on making this as seamless as possible for the users. And the team is very busy at the moment working on that. At the moment for Fitzroy users, and we'll be rolling out that same process for the Penn users. All of your data will be migrated to the new platforms for you. All of your software will be migrated for you. So when you first log into those new machines, what you were using before should be sitting, waiting, ready for you. If you've developed your own code and you did your own compiling of that code on our systems in the past, you will need to recompile that code on the new machines. If you're comfortable doing that yourself, go for it. If you're not comfortable, you're not quite sure how to go about this, then please reach out to us and we'll help you out. Otherwise, as I keep saying, there will be some training around this as the needs arise. The other point to note here with this migration is that you will need to amend your SSH connection. This is just because of the new login process, and also as simply because there's new names for the new machines. So we'll provide training on how you can tweak that code so that your connection works smoothly. By now, you will have heard HPC1, HPC2, HPC3 bandied about quite a bit, and it can get a little confusing. So we've just popped this slide in to make sure that it is as clear as possible. So if you do have your projects running on Pan, it's most likely that you'll be running on HPC1. That's the capacity machine. If you're currently running projects on Fitzroy, you'll have already been contacted about moving to Coupe or HPC3 in the short term. So that's our transition machine. And then eventually you're going to end up on HPC2, which is the supercomputer or capability machine. Now, not everyone has a project currently running. So if you don't have an active project, you can still just go through our standard application portal on our website. So www.nesi.org.nz/apply. Make your application there, and the team will work out which platform is going to be most suitable for you to run your project on. And similarly, if you've been on one of the either PAN or Fitzroy in the past, there is an opportunity now to shift to a capacity instead of capability or vice versa machine, so that you're on the perfect fit for purpose machine for your work. One of the good things here, which I emphasized earlier, is that they do have those shared operating environments, shared software development environments, and shared storage. So transitioning between those two machines will be a lot easier now. How is your work as a researcher going to be affected by this process? Our aim is that there'll be a minimal impact. All of the users, all of the projects, your allocations, your data, your software will all be migrated for you. For those of you who are less confident on the machines, if you have the skills already to use the machines currently, you'll be fine on the new machines. So if you've been working on our old machines, you'll be fine on the new ones. Those tweaks to how we do things will take you through. So we really want to emphasize that where there are changes, there will be training. Where you have specific questions, do reach out to us at support@NeSI, and we'll work out how we can help you. And finally, just some dates for you to have in the back of your mind on when all of this, when you're going to be impacted, essentially. So at the moment, as I said, Coupe is about to be made available to, well, it's been made available to us. We're doing the final development processes on there so that we can make it available to current Fitzroy users by the end of the month. Those users will be so that migration or transfer to Coupe will happen by the end of November, at which point Fitzroy will be decommissioned. So as I said, Fitzroy has to be physically removed before we can put HPC1 and HPC2 in its place. From the end of November, we will be making new allocations on Coupe. So if you're really keen to get onto the new capability machine, the new supercomputer, you can start applying now, but we won't be making any allocations until end of November. Right. From December, I think literally while we are on Christmas holidays, Cray will be installing the new machines at Greta Point in Wellington, so where Fitzroy has been. So that the installation will be happening in December, very early January, at which point NeSI will get the machines and we will begin training and migrating PAN users from early 2018. I really must emphasize that these are our goal dates, and we're working really hard to reach these. But as you can imagine, these are physically big machines. It's a technically challenging task to set them all up, and the team is working very hard to make this all happen. If these dates do shift, please bear with us. We will communicate with you if that happens. We're not predicting it to happen, but it's a big task, and everyone's working very hard towards these goals. Right. And this is just a wee summary. This is the last slide of the presentation, and it's just to highlight what we've got now and where we're going in the future with the new services. So we will have, we currently have HPC platform. Now we're adding that data analytics capability over the top of it. Virtual labs, visualization, and cloud integration are all new services which will come as a result of those new platforms. In terms of data, we're adding in that long-term storage capability. and also data resilience through the data recovery replication. And finally, we at NeSI, we really value the training, consultancy and support that we provide our users. So we're going to make a concerted effort to make this transition as smooth as possible for you. Where there's opportunities to really optimize your workflow or your code or your general approach off the back of these new machines, either because of the new environment, the new technology and hardware, or because of the new tools layered over the top. The consultant team is, they're ready and waiting basically to get involved in your projects and to make sure that you're getting the most out of the new machines. So there is, you can jump onto the NeSI website when the time comes and apply for a consulting project, and they would love to work with you on that. And finally, you will have heard the word training far too many times today. It's a big part of supporting you guys to make the most of the new machines. So we will be rolling out migration training as it's required in the next few months, but then there'll also be a new suite of training developed that enables you guys to make the most of these machines. Okay, that is plenty from me. We can stop the sharing of the screen now, and this is your opportunity to answer, to ask some questions. So I would imagine that you guys have been busy in the Google Doc. Just very busy, apparently.
A few good questions there.
So for now, I'll just open it up to the floor. If anyone wants to type into the chat room /hand, that's basically raising your hand to ask a question, we can do it that way. Otherwise, if we have no questions via that route, we'll jump into the Google Doc and take you through some of those questions. Okay, so I'm not seeing any, no one's raising their hand. So we'll jump into that Google Doc now and just talk through some of these. So regarding tools, we've had some Otago users want to use TensorFlow, but not really be able to easily. This person would be interested to know if that's going to get more support. And I'll hand this one over to the technical people, Wolfgang or Alex, to answer it.
Yes, so I've replied to that question, and I haven't installed TensorFlow myself, so I wasn't aware of some sort of dependency headaches that were mentioned in the further reply to my reply. But we'll look into it again, and hopefully we'll get something sorted. I guess that there will probably be quite a number of TensorFlow users.
And I guess it's fair to say that there's some good examples on the internet of TensorFlow being used with Cray machines. So it will really come down to our time and effort and ability to optimize that for the particularly research groups.
Correct. This was trying to avoid the build the universe situation for that particular researcher, and I think they just ran into version issues which looked like they were going to become insurmountable on the NeSI platforms at that time, so they went and did something else.
Well, we never like to hear that, but obviously, if we can help, and I think
they didn't. It wasn't a big problem. I think they could have used it. They had multiple options, and in this case, they ended up going off to the Azure cloud because they could get some educational credit on that for free. So it was all good. Plenty of good options.
Okay, all good.
It would be good to discuss further requirements to see so where you want to run this. I guess TensorFlow can probably run on CPUs and GPUs and so forth. So, and there are probably hundreds of dependencies that you can possibly install with that thing. Correct. So it would be great to have a discussion around that, what exactly you need there. And then
I suspect that the kind of deep learning group stuff will come out one way or the other. But certainly, I mean, that's not just an Otago thing. There's going to be plenty of interesting. It'll be a subgroup that will form, and certainly I can connect people from here who would have interesting workflows to run across either CPUs or GPUs. So that would be a really excellent thing to follow up. So I'll just keep my ear to the ground.
mean, one reason to get the NVIDIA GPUs, the P100s, was the deep learning stuff. I think these GPUs are very popular in that space. So hopefully,
yeah, I'll pass that on for sure. Yeah, thank you.
I think generally speaking, I mean, we're always interested to know what kind of software you want us to install. I mean, we have to sort of go after what users' requirements are, and whether it's TensorFlow or any kinds of software, people should just feel free to submit tickets to support at nesi.org.nz.
Okay. Now the next set, there's a couple of questions back to back here around virtual labs, and are these on a per user basis? Are they a bit of an open thing? You can, you have your open space and you can pop whatever you want there. For NeSI, we're really focusing our virtual machine capability at the very curated virtual lab end of the spectrum. So as outlined in this question, the focus will be developing highly curated, well looked after virtual labs for communities of users, as opposed to a single user virtual machine, which they curate themselves. Right, security has been mentioned, and indeed it is a can of worms. I think essentially this question is how much are we promising, given that that is a can of worms, and I think that's a question for Rob. Was that your
I answered that
answer?
one. Yeah, so I think what we're trying to do is obviously balance the ongoing security challenges that we face. It's maybe a surprise or maybe not a surprise that we do get rogue login attempts to our machines on a very regular basis. So we have to maintain ongoing security, but also as we move and taking on more genomic type work and work where the potential for privacy may be a consideration, we want to ensure that we've got at least some structure around how we might provide that layer of security.
Okay.
I think it's important to separate system security from compliance security, because that's going to be very different in terms of how that connects through to research projects and the difference between operations and strategy.
Yeah, and we definitely don't want to create constraint within the machines or across nodes or between components of the machines, and also create too much complication in that login and connection, and particularly where there's workflows, we're trying to automate processes. So we're going to have to navigate our way through that, and we're very conscious of not impacting the researcher workflow as we go through this process.
Okay, the next one in the Google Doc is around two-factor authentication, and what about automated logins through software? I'm going to hand this one, the discussion, over to the lovely NeSI person that responded to this question.
Okay, that was me. So yeah, it's so every user will have to go through two-factor authentication, and we'll see what we can do with machine-to-machine communication. So so scripted, automated access to the HPC. I don't really have an answer to this yet, and I guess we will just need to discuss what could be done.
Yes, it's going to be more important for you looking at things with things like the virtual labs. I mean, so the HPC jobs, you wouldn't normally expect that you would have a huge number of automated logins necessarily, although it's possible and conceivable. My main point was that unless you're looking for it, you may not see which of your users are using that kind of capability, because at the moment it doesn't make any difference to you whether or not they're logging in manually or by machine under an automated process. So I'm just highlighting that. Yeah.
Yes, so it's with the what you said about the SSH keys, this will no longer work. So you will not be able to just create a key pair and then log on.
Yeah, exactly. So my point is that anyone that's already doing that on NeSI, unless you looked for them, you're not going to see that. So they're all going to get broken by that change.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is around will NeSI be the broker for cloud bursting? And we must put our hand up and say in the short term, the service will not be up and running. This is not from day one service we'll be providing. But that seamless extension or cloud bursting for our users into an appropriate public cloud space is definitely something, I guess you could say we're brokering, that we want to develop. In terms of what that actually looks like and how we run that, we don't have details for you at the moment. So as per usual, if this is something that you have suggestions on or use case that might be affected by it, please get in touch with us so that we can talk about it a little bit more.
So definitely we've done some, Georgina, we've done some projects around the cloud bursting. So we've got, NeSI's built some capability. With the new platform, we've got the accounting and tracking layer and provisioning layer that will allow us to act as a broker, and particularly with Amazon and Azure. So with those two public clouds, we will have the capability of creating a seamless link. So you get a project with NeSI, and the platform that gets provisioned could be a NeSI platform or one of those other two public clouds. Again, as you say, we've got to build a service around that and get the use case for that to be right. But definitely that capability is there, and we're very excited about that.
So I suppose one quick follow-on from that's what the costing idea would be, because that's going to be a concern. It's extremely useful to have cloud bursting work on the technical front. That's definitely a barrier, which is nice not to have, but it would be interesting to know, depending on the types of queues people are using to get jobs in the first place, who ends up actually taking on the cost for use of the external facilities.
Agreed, and as we know with some of these clouds sort of trying to woo the academic circuit, you can get free and very cheap. Spot pricing you can get very cheap, you know, but we know with the testing that we've done, particularly as you become more performant in the cloud, and the price can go up very quickly. So that would be a negotiation and discussion probably at the institutional layer to agree how we would handle that. But if researchers have access perhaps to cheap through one of the academic routes, then there's a potential that we could leverage some of that on a case-by-case basis. But we would again have to work that through.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. I think it would be really, really interesting to see a roadmap of how institutions should tackle that, because that also would force the institutions to consider our plans for what we say the front door is for those cloud services, because obviously it's a no-brainer, but NeSI can do a better job of providing a smoother experience. That's a very important thing for us to consider in our own local strategic planning.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do is just to make this not an issue for the researcher, and that's why we'd rather raise it up at the institutional level. And we're starting to have those conversations already, and as some of the big investors are expanding beyond the invested amount of capacity on the machines that they've invested in, they're also interested to see how they can expand out on a research group by research group basis.
Excellent. Now, I've just noticed another question has populated the Google Doc, and this one possibly from the genomics community. What's the basic spec for these virtual labs? How much CPU, memory, disk, etc.? Are we talking about something similar to what was offered by NZGL? Now, I can have a crack at this, but is there someone in the team who wants to dive in first?
I think there's a couple of things, and I don't mind, you can definitely jump in. But we're looking both at what NZGL did and looking at whether that is part of our service offering and the BioT type model, but also looking, and we're talking with Genomics Aotearoa about what those requirements could look like. But we're also looking at like the virtual labs that Nectar have produced in the genomics sector, and looking also at how transferable that would be. So Nectar runs on OpenStack as the technology layer. We will be having OpenStack built within the HPC environment. So there is a lift and shift opportunity, but we've got to look at what the needs are and where we get the biggest impacts. You know, virtual labs take quite a lot of curation and building and specification. So getting the data layer, the software layer, and the sharing layer within built right, we've got to put our efforts in the right place.
Thanks, Rob. Okay. Now, unlike Wednesday, I don't know if anyone scrolled down in the Google Doc, but you'll see that we didn't even get through all the questions on Wednesday. But are there any other questions from the floor? I'll give you a moment to dive into the Google Doc or dive into the chat. Okay, so that looks like we've wrapped up the Q&A session. So what we're going to do from here is this presentation, or a version of this one and Wednesday's presentation, which was the same material, will be made available through our website. We'll also put up the slides, so you have that material to refer back to, and we're going to take the question and answer document and turn that into something for the website as well. So we'll point all of you guys in the direction of that material as it's loaded, so that you can refer back to it. But as usual, if another question comes up, please just flick it through to support, support@nesi.org.nz, and that will be sent to the right member of the team to deal with your question. So from here, if you're a Fitzroy user, you will be getting very excited that you're about to be accessing in the next few weeks the new machines. You'll be participating in training in the next little while. If you're a PAN user, you really just need to hold back the excitement until early next year, when we'll start all that training and we'll be getting you migrated. So thanks again to everyone for your time and your participation in this webinar. We've really enjoyed it from our end. Thanks to all the NeSI team members who have participated today. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very busy time for everyone. So thanks for taking the time out to be on the webinar as well. I'm going to call it quits. That's all for today. Thanks, everyone.